Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of music that we're thankful for. We're diving into a request for Animal Collective with the track, What Would I Want? Sky. I don't know where the inflection is supposed to be on that title, but the general concept of just responding that way cracks me up, even though I think the idea generally here is going to be I want the sky, like those are my goals, the sky's the limit kind of thing. But just the way it's worded cracks me up. Let's dive into this. Animal Collective has done some really interesting stuff, and they're so varied that I can't have any expectation going into any tracks, so let's see what they're bringing to the table today. It's very psychedelic, very atmospheric. New warble layer over here too, kind of lost in everything that's happening. Interesting rhythmic pattern here. Yeah, it is 4/4. Just a really interesting accent pattern. Why does this remind me of the pop music of the 2010s? I think a lot of it's the production on the vocals, but it reminds me a little bit of like Jason Mraz. It's interesting how there's almost no memorable riffage in here, guitar or not, except for that one vocal track in the background that's kind of taking the semi-melodic lead in the foundation. That's the song. See what I mean? You can't really have any expectations for this group. I mean, I was introduced to these guys as a post-hardcore supergroup, and the first track y'all ever showed me was a bit compressed because I think it was a demo. But we had 2 or 3 vocalists, mostly in that more high-pitched, whiny, emo, post-hardcore sound. We had multiple screamers. We had noise all over the place, 2, 3 guitar lines going off at any single time, like a hyperactive Mars Volta, heavy drumming. This is so far... Okay, it's not ridiculously divorced from that, because the idea of multiple layers all coming together to create a specific atmosphere is pretty consistent between these two. And this is dense, much like I've come to expect from them. But as far as genre, again, you couldn't really be any further away from what I was originally introduced to them as. I don't know what to make of this. Not just because of expectations, which, as I mentioned, I went in with 0, knowing that this could be anything, but also because it's... Well, let's start from the beginning. This track is broken up into 2 bits. There is the non-vocal section we start the track off with, and the lots of vocal section that makes up the second half of this track. The first part is an interesting atmosphere. Interesting rhythm to it, although I guess interesting rhythm is pretty consistent through both parts here. It took me a second to lay down the the time signature, because the lead accented rhythm pattern doesn't fit really nicely into the 4/4. It feels disjointed, like we're lurching at the end of it. I thought maybe we were in an odd time signature and being it was short, maybe 3. No, it ends up being 4/4, just really jagged. It doesn't really fit together cleanly. This entire 3-minute journey is evolution. It's layering, it's slow burn, it's post-rock, electronic, post-electronic. I don't know if that's a thing, but to me it captures that same slow burn energy of post-rock in a purely electronic atmosphere. We have sounds drifting from side to side. We have a lot of electronic tones in here. There's very little instrumentation that I recognize in this. There is the allusion to an electric guitar, to bells at one point, but for the most part, everything sounds synthetic. It starts out I'm a little lost. As it begins to form, add more layers, I think what I mostly feel here is a strange combination of tension and calm. I think a lot of that comes down to the schism between the instrumentation and what those instruments are playing. The sounds themselves, yeah, everything in here is calm, it's soft, it's bright. The sounds themselves are generally rounded off. Nothing in here comes across as sharp or abrasive. Nothing really cuts through too much in the noise. Everything feels rather palatable. Nothing is tough to listen to on their own. But there is such a cacophony of sounds, and some that I'm sure I even missed. I mentioned some sort of warbly thing over here about 2 minutes in, and honestly, I don't know when that started. I was just looking around the sound sphere, and there's an instrument over here that I hadn't heard prior. I don't know how many other layers I missed in this, but it does become a cacophony. It becomes incredibly dense. There's so much happening. It's easy to lose everything in it. It brings anxiety to me despite the palatability of the instruments themselves. There is also, well, I mentioned that this is the instrumental part, but there is a vocal thing happening. I don't know what they're saying. This is one of the things that's bouncing around back and forth. Repeated vocals seems to be a key element of this track, and I'm curious if there's a relationship between what's repeated here and what gets repeated in the second half. I do think the production does a lot of heavy lifting here, though. This is more listenable than I would expect, given what must be at least a dozen layers, possibly even more, all competing for space, all competing for attention. I think that's what brings me to feeling a bit of tension and anxiety here. It's just it's incredibly cluttered. It feels like I am at a large gathering, and I'm just surrounded by people talking. There's noise everywhere, and it kind of forms together into something. The low hum of a gathering, of a party. But if you try to key into individual conversations, it's just too difficult. It's a lot of sound coming into your ears at one time. It's overwhelming, and I do feel overwhelmed here at the beginning of this track. And I think it's interesting that I come to this point, having started feeling lost. I didn't understand the beginning of this track. And yet I've decided to wander through it only to find that I don't feel welcome here, but not in a doom metal or black metal antagonistic way. This just isn't my scene, I think. I don't know. There's nothing abrasive in here. I don't feel like I'm in danger, but I am quite overwhelmed. I'm quite anxious. All of this kind of gives way for a drone, I think it was. Maybe it was just a single note moving to follow a chordal pattern slowly. We drop down the one instrument though, and then we bring in the next repeated line, which was something about what want sky or something like that. I don't know. It reminded me of the title, but it didn't seem to have enough syllables to be the title. So I don't know what's going on there. I can't wait to hit the lyrics on this one. And this is just repeated over and over. And it also, much like that opening rhythmic idea in the first part, is jagged. It also doesn't feel like it should fit into the 4/4 pattern either. It does, but it doesn't feel like it. Now, the big difference here is as we start to add more layers, we also add in some vocals, linear vocals, poetic vocals, typical lyrics. This is fighting with everything else to be heard. It's slightly a bit up in the mix. It does have a bit more presence than everything else, but it's also competing with that other vocal bit. Honestly, to the point that I could hear the vocals. If I wanted to key in, I could probably hear the lyrics. But it's in line with this repeated element too, as far as placement and volume, that I think it's really easy to just start to hear the two lines combined, and maybe that's the point of it. But language becomes cluttered here also, which is really interesting. When we've listened to noisier or experimental music in the past, if there are vocals, they are either completely unintelligible, destroyed and swallowed up by the music itself, or they're clear as day. It is the one shining beacon within the noise of the song. Here, though, there's multiple vocal lines in order to add that extra layer of chaos. The lyrics are having the same clashing component that the music is. And I find that to be really interesting. It's one of the few songs I can think where the lyrics are purposefully part of the noise, the mess of the song too. But in a lot of ways, after you exclude the lyrical components, the song, the second half feels a lot like the first. Once again, we are adding layers, building up an atmosphere, starting from something simple, kind of not really going anywhere. Again, we have a strange rhythmic pattern and building it into this large cacophony. I feel this one is a little bit more inviting, particularly because of the vocal timbre. As I mentioned, for some reason it reminds me of Jason Mraz. I don't know if I don't think it's the vocal timbre. I think it's the note choices, the melody. I think it's some of the timbral choices here. There's a dreamlike quality due to the softness of a lot of these instruments that I associate with Jason Mraz too. It would not surprise me though if this came out early 2010s. It feels of that time. Although, of course, a bit more chaotic. And while I did find a general groove to sit in it, it was another track that didn't really feel like it wanted me there. It didn't really feel like it had room for me to be here. How do I fit into the sound sphere? I don't. I have to be on the outside of it. I don't know what else to add to this track. It's a strange combination of lots of sounds that don't fit together, but do. It creates this dreamlike atmosphere that feels warm and inviting, but once you get in, it actively disregards your presence. It doesn't care if you're there or not. It's almost tricked you with the sounds of these soft instruments, luring you into an apathetic sound sphere. It's kind of bizarre. And it's so loud and densely written and composed and produced. And do these two halves, I mean, they're sonically combined, cohesive. They have the same general soft dreamlike sound to them. They're both incredibly layered, but they're also very different. It almost feels like that singular synth that separates the two literally does separate the two. It isn't just a transition idea. It's one concept and then a transition into another concept, similar but different. Are they even the same song? I don't know. There's a lot about this track that feels like a twisting of tradition, of norm, of theory. Saying, well, this is what is typically done in music like this. What if we push that to the envelope? What if we push it over the edge? What if we take this thing from another genre that is atmospherically and emotionally very different from this core soft pop sound, and we introduce noise to this? What if we bring in the antonym of this sound and introduce it to this general vibe? What if we take something that on the surface would be incredibly palatable and turn it into something that isn't? And it's this twisting of norms that I think surprises me the most in it. It almost makes it feel experimental in some ways. A lot of what ifs coming together to form something that ends up working well while still being quite, I don't know what word I would use here. It's a tricky song. It lured me in on one premise and introduced me to another. Maybe the lyrics will help with some of this. I feel like I'm just as vague as the music is in my description of it. I'm not doing my job really well today, but the song is eluding language. It's evading my attempts to describe what it is. All right. So the first half is just the phrase good dreams. I'm going to disregard that for now. I don't know how that works in with everything else. Maybe we'll get there by the end. The second section's repeated phrase is, whoa, I walk sky. And there's something incredibly disjointed about this where it feels like whoa, I walk, and sky are three. They're said in three different contexts. It feels like they're spliced together in a way that creates this jagged stop between each of them. Now, what's interesting is I vaguely remember towards the end of the track that the lead vocalist chimed in on this, but did it all in one breath. It removed that jagged element from the delivery. So I'm kind of curious, what's the meaning of that? Why do we have this jagged delivery and smooth delivery, and why do we overlay them towards the end of the song? What is that supposed to represent? The song, though, at least this back half of the track, relates to, well, just kind of feeling the blues. It says, is everything all right? Are you feeling moany? Do you feel lonely? You're not the only one. Is everything all right? Are you feeling stormy? Are you feeling phony? Well, you're not the only one. Clouds stop and move above me. Too bad they can't help me. Do I float up? When I stop and look around me, the grays are where that color should be. What is the right way? So he says, I'm feeling gloomy. Feeling down in the dumps, dude. There should be color everywhere, and all I see is gray. And is your life like that too? Just know you're not alone in this. Now, the second verse repeats some of this, but changes some things up. For instance, the first set is, are you feeling lonely? Are you feeling moldy? But aside from this, we also still have that whoa, I walk sky thing going on, repeating on loop, which I don't think stops at all. It's already creating some clashing sounds with this primary vocal, but there's also a second vocal here. It says, are you taking it lightly? Lost in the flurry? You start to worry. You will be buried. Buried. You will be buried. Taking it lightly, and so you're in a hurry, and then you worry. Here come those flurries. We have three vocal ideas here on top of the 9, 10, 11 instrumental parts. This is incredibly dense. There is a lot going on, and I think the fact that I didn't even know or hear this third vocal line just tells you how much information is being put out there at any moment. Now, I did pick up that some of these sections had harmonies, so I knew there was at least 3 vocal lines in parts of these, but I didn't know there was 3 sets of lyrics going on. The idea, though, is consistent. I'm feeling down. If you're feeling down, you're not the only one. There's lots of us out here who could use a pick-me-up. Now, the chorus, it actually changes from the first time to the second time, it mostly is a shift in perspective, where the first one says that I should be floating, but I'm weighted by thinking. I can't really make it all change when the sky gets filled up too fast, and the taxi man will say, "You better give me some money. Stop daydreaming, dude." It says, when the point of horizon is hiding from you, what would you want? The second time through, he mentions that he needs to make some change when the sky gets filled up too fast, and the taxi cab is waiting on me, so I better give him some money, and I need to stop daydreaming. It's less about someone kind of going through their life without self-reflection to a point of reflecting on the self. I do need to make some changes. I need to be I need to start taking the steps that's going to improve my future, to get me out of this funk, to return color to the world. And this is where I see that at the end I was talking about the main vocalist and that repeated phrase overlapping, having the smooth delivery versus the harsh one. That's actually not true. The jagged is still, "Whoa, I walk sky." This one says, "What would I want? Sky." And I think this is interesting because that's the title, and I mentioned that what I heard from the jagged part was like the title, but didn't feel like it fit. And here I confuse them for being one and the same. There's certainly some phonetic elements overlapping here to create a very similar idea. But I'm curious once again too, now what's the thematic element here? Why are we doing this? What is the purpose of having these two similar but different phrases repeated, with one being jagged and one being smooth, overlapped and overlaid on top of each other? And I can't answer that. I don't know. There's a general gist to this song about turning around bad times, about finding positivity in the negativity, finding calm within the chaos. The music doesn't tell that to me. The music does feel like chaos most of the time. But I do like the general message in the lyrics, and I wish I just got a little bit more about what the music was trying to do with these themes. But those are just my thoughts on Animal Collective's What Would I Want? Sky. What did you think of this track? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Do you have your own thoughts, opinions, or perspective on this? Please put all of that, as well as anything else you'd like to add, into the comments section below. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today, but I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.